Hi, welcome back to the Gabster channel. This is going to be a video about how to build the streamer portion for the Gabster TD1 Dac. All the parts that you're going to need and how to build it step by step to get to this stage. And if you haven't seen the second video where I actually carry on and build the Gabster TD1 Dac on top, I'll put a link of it below and also towards the end of the video in the corner as well. So let's get to it and let's start building this streamer for the Gabster TD1 Dac. To build a streamer for the Gabster TD1 Dac, we're going to need a PurePie from IanCanada. This is version 2. And this is like a power supply for the parts above it, except for the Gabster TD1 Dac. So this can power pretty much all the stack, and that's why I like this thing, because it's very compact and it does everything. All you have to do is plug it in with any power supply, and it has batteries on the bottom and also ultra capacitors. So it's like a mini version that does everything for you. So the PurePie, and then on top of that you're going to need a Raspberry Pi. This is like a little mini computer you can buy anywhere. All the descriptions will be below. You will also going to need a Shield Pi Pro. This is a Mark II. This is not necessary, it's optional, but I highly recommend it. It helps shield things and it provides some better power for your board as well. And then on top of that, we're going to use a FIFO-Q7. This is a very important part. This helps reclock the noisy signal that's coming from the little computer here, the Raspberry Pi, into a much better signal. And this is a crucial part that's going to really reduce all the jitter and get you some really clean I2S signal to your Gabster TD1 Dac. On top of all that, we are going to use a stack here by the Gabster TD1 stack. And so after your FIFO-Q7, there will be a shield. And then on top of the shield, there will be a PCM, I2S to PCM converter. And this is optional, but recommended. Then there will be another shield. And then we'll have the Gabster TD1 Dac on top. You can also use a Monitor Pi Pro to monitor the signal. So I'll put through these parts all together in a few seconds. But I just want to give you guys one more option here. Some people do not want to use a Raspberry Pi. Let's say you have a streamer that you are using. You want to connect via I2S or via an RCA, or maybe you have a CD player you want to connect through RCA optical. So if you are going to do that, or even USB, you should use a DDC board. So everything is the same, except instead of using a Raspberry Pi, like that little mini computer, you're going to use the DDC. It's called the Receiver Pi DDC by IanCanada. And basically it has inputs for optical, RCA, and I2S in the form of HDMI connector. This is not a regular HDMI, by the way, it's just for your I2S signal. And for those who want to do USB, you can buy an Amanero board and you plug it in on the bottom, just like so. And that's going to give you a USB input. And you basically plug that thing in here. I'll show you all these once we start putting this thing together. All right, let's put this thing together. So we've got our PurePie Mark II here, and you just install the little 4 standoffs that comes with it. And on top of that, we're going to put your Raspberry Pi. And there's a little, the bottom here should go into the little springy little knobs here that go on the bottom. But usually lined up normally on its own, you don't have to do much for that. So you put that, and then you're going to put your 16mm standoffs. If you don't have 16mm standoffs, or it doesn't come with any of the Ian products, you can just put a couple. For example, I used here a combination of a 10 and a 6, so you can do that. 16 or 17mm standoffs seems to work fine for that. So we're going to put all 4. Next thing we're going to use is our Shield Pi Pro Mark II. It's just a shield and some capacitor. It's not necessary, but it's optional, but it helps shield from the Raspberry Pi. If you are going to run a big screen, like a 5-inch or a 7-inch screen, you can run your flex cable right now, because once you start putting stuff, it's going to be harder to get into the space. So go ahead if you want to go, if you're doing that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out my video where I did a while ago about my Gabster D6 streamer and DAC, and you could see the cable and the little screen. It's kind of fun, and it actually provides some nice entertainment and more aesthetic appeal to your project. So if you've done that, you can go ahead. If not, you can skip this part. Now we're going to put our Shield Pi Pro. This is the Mark II, and you just push it down like so. Next, we're going to put 12 millimeter standoffs on top of the Shield Pi Pro Mark II, and there's 4 of them. On top of that, now comes our this is going to do the FIFO-Q7, and that also goes on top just like so. Make sure you line up the 4 holes. Make sure that the GPIO is lined up properly before you start pushing. And once we secure that, then we put that down. And so we've got this part here. And to secure the FIFO-Q7, you're going to put 15 millimeter standoffs. And here you go, you got your streamer for the Gabster TD1 Dac all built. For the wiring, there's a couple of wires. The main one, which is this one here, and this is to provide power for your FIFO-Q7. So basically, what it says here, 3.3 volt, you're going to run positive and negative to the positive and negative to the FIFO-Q7. Please do not reverse these wires, or you will fry something and it will be a very expensive mistake. You do not need to plug in anything on the 5 volt side here or the 5 volt sides here. These are already connected, so you don't need anything there. The next cable you're going to need is this cable here. This one goes from J10 here on the Pure Pi, and it goes down underneath here in the first socket here. And this basically provides, between songs, it's going to tell the board to basically charge the batteries and the ultra capacitors, and it just keeps it going in a nicer way. And all you need to power this thing is just a 5 volt power supply. Anything, I would suggest one of those i5 power supplies. I'll put a link for it below, or any 5 volt power supply. This is not critical, because when this is running, it disconnects mostly from this. It's running on the batteries and the ultra capacitors. The Raspberry Pi does run constantly from this thing, but the Raspberry Pi is still not the clean side. Once you start to the FIFO-Q7 and above, basically they are not connected to that power supply. You don't have to worry about it too much. There's one more step that you're going to need, is once you're done this, is a Monitor Pi or Monitor Pi Pro is highly recommended, and this thing plugs in like so, right at the beginning here, on the first one, not the inner one, the front one. And this is going to provide, just to give you an idea what's happening, if the music is playing, which frequency it is and stuff like that. It's got some other function as well. I would get the Monitor Pi Pro in case in the future you want to do other things with your stacks. You don't have to keep buying things all over again. When you are putting the Monitor Pi Pro, it's extremely important that when you plug this thing in, it's exactly in the right socket, that's not moved by a pin one way or another, because if you do so, it will reverse polarity and you will burn it. So here we go, we're going to plug it in again. And that's it. Your streamer is ready to go. We have it here going, and all you have to do is plug it in and you can get it working. And you still need software, and you just need to load it on the memory card that comes with the Raspberry Pi. So we're gonna, to take the memory card out, just use some tweezers or some little mini pliers, just gently and just pull it out. It's just a micro SD card, and you can actually use software to that. If you are using Roon, I made a really nice video about how to load Ropieee on this, and you can see it. I'll put a link for it in the description below. It describes exactly how to install Roon and Ropieee basically on your little card, so you will become a Roon and a streamer. If you are using Volumio, just follow the Volumio website, and they describe exactly how to use it. You can also use Moode. There's other things you can use. There's so many different softwares. I personally use Roon, so I don't have a lot of experience in the other ones. So if you need more experience, if you need more information, just check out the internet, and you can also post on DIY Audio for some help. Once you have your software loaded, just push the SD card back in. Basically, it goes upside down, just in case you're wondering. If it's not going the right way, just flip it upside down. And what you're going to do, you're going to put your 5-volt power supply in here, and let it run for a bit, because the batteries underneath have to charge. And then you can basically, there's a little switch here, you turn it on, and this thing, you should see it powering and goes. You should make sure that this thing is working before you progress to the next step. The way to tell is that the Monitor Pi Pro will display, let's say 48 megahertz. You will see lights on the 5Q7 and all that. Now, IanCanada has some excellent tutorials, and on each of these boards, I strongly suggest you watch them. If you need support with IanCanada products, just read those manuals. You're going to find a lot of help in there. If you're still having issues, you can post on a DIY Audio forum for some help. I'll put a link of that forum below. Worst scenario, you can try emailing Ian, and hopefully he'll get back to you. He's a busy guy. I'm not sure. He doesn't always reply to small things, but the odd times he might come in and chime in and try to help you. As much as I would like to help you guys configuring this part, I don't have the time. I really have so many emails to deal with, and as much as I would love to, I have tried in the past and helped a few people, but more time guys, I find I have less and less time to help people. So if I'm ignoring those emails, please don't think I'm ignoring you. It's just I personally don't have that much time and luxury to be able to do that. I will try to help with the Gabster TD1 Dac as much as I can as well, but basically the videos are the best part for all the help I can basically provide. I do have a Patreon site where you can join if you like for very little amounts of money, and you might get a slightly more support there than on the regular emails and stuff like that. And I also have different tiers of Patreon support if you want to get a little bit more support and more help. Another thing which is optional if you want to do, and you don't have to do this unless if you're handy and you really want to do it, you can. Just cut yourself a piece of metal. Doesn't have to be copper, any metal. I once used a little tin can to cut some metal of it. So, and for holes, you're going to basically plug it in here. And what's going to do is underneath you can put some weather stripping and apply pressure on the clocks. So we're just going to show you how to do that. And that's going to provide a bit of a damping and basically provide a little bit of just support for the clocks, so to make sure that they stay connected. So what I usually do, I put the weather stripping on top of the clock with the sticky part towards the top, and I just line up the 4 holes so I know it's going to go in properly. And then I push it down. So you can see what I mean. So now by pushing it down, you're going to apply pressure on the clocks. So now you can put another set of 15 millimeter standoffs on top of that. So now you could see what I mean by doing so. Again, this is just optional. Don't fret about it. You don't have to do it. It's just one of those things that we think it helps the clocks by dampening them run a little bit better. Talking about the clocks, please don't go spending a lot of money upgrading your clocks. The clocks that come with the FIFO-Q7 are pretty nice clocks, and you really don't need to upgrade them, at least at the beginning. If you have tons of money and you really want to splurge, yes, you can get some of the nice, Ian has nice clocks. They're called SC Pure, they're around $400. I still haven't experimented with a lot of clocks with this DAC. Yes, they will make a difference, a tiny, tiny difference, but I'm still experimenting. Maybe we'll do videos about that in the future, but it runs beautifully and sounds amazing with just a regular clock. So start with that, at least get a base point, and then if you happen to have those clocks running around, try them and see if, for yourself if it makes a difference. And let us know. I would like to hear from everybody in the comments below if they hear differences. So that's the clocks. If you are changing clocks, just make sure the orientation, there's a little round little dot on them. Just make sure they're in the proper orientation so you don't mess them up. So here you have it. The streamer is ready for your Gabster TD1 Dac. Now, some variations you might want to do is if you want to use it with, for example, you have your own streamer and you want to stream to the Gabster TD1 Dac, then instead of the Raspberry Pi that's underneath there, you're going to use what we call a Receiver Pi DDC. What's a Receiver Pi DDC? Is actually an input card, so you can basically input from your streamer into the RCA or the optical. It's got I2S, and you can also, if you add an Amanero card on the bottom, that's the Amanero card, and that lets you then basically plug in a USB as well, for those of you who want to basically send from their computer or whatever device you have into USB. In that case, then you don't need the Raspberry Pi and you're streaming from your own device into this DDC card. And from there on, it's just the rest is exactly the same as what you see here in the streamer. For those of you who want to use this DAC for other purposes, you can add an output card. So for example, you can add an HDMI Pro card on top and send I2S signal to your device. Once you've finished building the streamer that's going to go for the Gabster TD1 Dac, I highly recommend that you test it, that it's working. And what you want to do is configure all the software. If you're running Roon, I have a beautiful tutorial. I'll put a link for it in the description below. You can use that to run Ropieee. You can also use Moode. You can use Volumio. There's other also software platforms. For those other platforms, just Google each platform that you say you're using Volumio, and you'll have some tutorials on how to install it on the little mini SD cards. You can run the software. Then all you need to do is plug in a 5-volt power supply to it, and you should see there's a little red light that's indicating there's power. If it's the first time you're running it, you need to run it for a good half hour at least to charge the batteries and get it going. After that, it doesn't need as much time. Once it's been charged, all you have to do is you press the power button, and if you have a Monitor Pi Pro running, you should see that it's running and it's saying there is no signal. Now, we're gonna wait for the board to power up, and once it powers up, we will be able to run some music through it. You will see at the beginning that while it's powering up, that's right in here, it's flashing fast. That means the Raspberry Pi is actually loading the software and that it's still in the loading mode. And once it's actually starts blinking slowly, then we know that it's actually running. Now I got my Roon device ready. I'm going to press a song and I'll say play now. and automatically you'll see that's actually changed to 44.1, means it's playing something and it's actually running. And you can also see the clocks also changed to the green color there. So you won't hear any sound because we don't have this connected to anything right now, but that at least gets you an idea that it's actually working and running. And now you're ready for the next step of installing the Gabster TD1 Dac. Do not install the DAC on top till your streamer is actually functioning, because we want to know that you got to that stage before you start thinking, oh, which part is not working. You want to go step by step and keep things streamlined, so we know if there's a problem in here that we got to fix this first before we move to the next step. And once this is working well, then we can progress to the next step. The streamer can run wireless, but the signal is a bit weak. You'll have to have a signal really not too far away. But you can also plug it the Ethernet cable on the back, and that usually runs a little bit better. It's also configured in the software. If you run it wirelessly, you have to do a little bit of configuration in the software as well. Now, it just happened that beside the streamer that we're building here for the Gabster TD1 Dac is another streamer that I've built before, and this one is the based on the D6, what I call, platform, and it's basically identical to this, except this one has a screen. It's got the big screen here, and it's kind of fun, and you can actually see what's going on. It works easily if you're running Roon. Some people are able to get it running with other software like Volumio and other ones as well. So if you want to know more about this one, I have a video. It's called, I think, the D6 Streamer DAC, and you can actually check it out, and it's got exactly how to build this. So basically, this DAC is exactly the same as the streamer that we built for the Gabster TD1 Dac, except this one has a big screen, and it's just some nicer platforms. Just got some wood here, and it just looks a little fancier. And we're running an I2S signal coming out from this extra HDMI Pro card to this Denafrips Aris DAC. And so that's the only difference, is that little extra output card that makes, now we can use it to use other DACs as well. So as you can see, the same stack can be used for different things. Just giving you some ideas and some examples. Now, other variations is, instead of using a pure Pi on the bottom to supply the power for your stack here, you can actually use a station Pi, what we call. But this one doesn't have any power. You'd have to figure out your own 5 volt and your own 3.3 volt. What I love about this, it's all in one piece. All you have to do is plug it in with a 5 volt, and off you go. You're powering pretty much the whole stack. Now, the good thing about using the station Pi instead of the pure Pi is, if you are building it in a big box, you might find it a little bit easier, and then you're not going vertically. You can spread your parts a little bit better. But then you are using some big power supplies that you can see here. It gets a little bit more complicated than just using the pure Pi. It just simplifies everything. There will be a third video coming in a couple days as well on how to configure all the jumpers and all the different configurations that this board can run with. And just to be on the safe side, before you run this system into your big, very expensive hi-fi system, just in case you wired something wrong, you soldered something, there's a sloppy solder somewhere, and you could easily get some higher voltage, like up to 15 volt, coming out of your connectors into your preamplifier. You don't want that. So before you do anything, make sure you test the output, and also you might want to connect it first to some, a cheap amplifier or preamplifier, just a cheap setup, just to make sure. I'm not worried about the actual board itself. I'm worried about how you solder it and how you put everything together, just in case. Because once you determine it's working, then you can move it and put it on your expensive setup. I'm going to put a link in the corner here on how to build the top portion, the Gabster TD1 Dac, on top of the IanCanada streamer. And in the corner here, I'm going to put a link on how to build a 15 volt ultra capacitor power supply based on IanCanada's UC Pure. There'll be a speaker in the middle if you'd like to subscribe. You can also subscribe to my Patreon and support me and get some extra support yourself as well. Take care, and I hope to see you again.